Garbers. I've been using Drupal for about 5 years. I got involved in Drupal through the first Drupal Camp Atlanta, and I was interested in it as a transfer from webs.com, which is a site that I was using for my online magazine website, and it was just sort of kind of a cheap startup thing for just a casual little website, and we decided that we needed something a little bit heavier duty than that. So I showed up at Drupal Camp Atlanta and sort of fell in love with it, got involved with the community, presented the year after that. This will be my 4th year presenting at Drupal Camp, which is exciting. And how many of you guys are like brand new to Drupal? This is your first day, first experience? Awesome, almost all of you. That's really great. This is a session for you guys. This is absolute beginner stuff that you need to know to get through the rest of today, to get through the rest of your experience with Drupal, installing and stuff like that. And really quick before we start, I wanted to mention, if you follow technology news or the community or whatever, you'll probably be familiar with the several kind of kerfuffles that have happened at technology cons and camps over the past year. I just wanted to say congratulations to you guys, because you picked the best community around an open source software that there is out there. In the 5 years that I've been involved with Drupal, I've never once had any negative comments at a camp. I've never seen a single negative comment on a forum post. Like, that's kind of mind-blowing to me, because you can't get very far on the internet without seeing negative stuff, but there's never been anything within Drupal. So congratulations for picking an awesome CMS, an awesome community, and you're going to love it, I promise. So we begin with a quote from Inigo Montoya of The Princess Bride. "You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means." And unfortunately, this pertains to a lot of things in life, Drupal being one of them. So how many of you guys have, thank you, how many of y'all have installed Drupal and seen this homepage so far? Cool. All right, so already this one word presents itself to you, the word content. And I mean, that's easy enough. You've all seen the word content before. You know what content is. But then all of a sudden this word node pops up. And that's confusing, because what's a node? How is it different than content? How is it related? How does this tie in with everything else? And then you see the word page. And then all of these other terms start presenting themselves to you, not only through your Drupal website, but on forums, books, camps, like when you're going to hear all of this stuff today, and it can get confusing, because what do all of these things mean, and how do they relate to each other, and there's some overlap, and it can get kind of frustrating, especially if you walk into a session today and it's like stuff that you feel like you need to learn, but there's some terms that they're using that you're unfamiliar with. I'm going to try to help you out with that today. I know that on the paper and the sign it says that we're going to cover 11 concepts. I'm sorry, I lied to you, I added 4 more. So we're going to talk about 15 concepts of Drupal today and how you can use them and apply them for your website. So the first concept that we're going to talk about is pretty basic, content. And this is something you're all familiar with. You've seen content on the web. It's stuff that you're presenting to your users. Blog entries, articles, anything that you are showing to your users or to the people that visit your site. So these are all examples of content from different Drupal websites. By the way, all of the examples that I'll be using today are from sites that are available for you to look at the Drupal case files at drupal.org. This is a bunch of really nice Drupal sites, not only ones that are well put together and just gorgeous websites, but also ones that come from super reputable, like big ticket sources. This is the Grammy Awards website, the White House, the Economist, and then a couple of other really awesome big Drupal websites. So if you want to just kind of check out the capability of Drupal, definitely look at the case files. It's awesome stuff. So anyway, these are some different examples from Drupal sites on the web, and these are all different pieces of content. But Drupal, although it's all under this sort of umbrella term, refers to them as different content types. So here, for example, we have a forum, a blog post, an article, a poll, and a page. And these are all different types of content. Why does Drupal have this? Because it helps refer to content more specifically. A blog post might be a totally different type of content than a picture or a poll or an article. And so you need a different way to identify these types of things. Content is just sort of the term that Drupal uses to refer to all of them as a whole. Next, we have a page. This was a confusing term to me when I started out with Drupal because in my web computer mind, I thought of a page as being when you're looking at a browser, anything that you're seeing when you go to any given website. Drupal treats a page differently. A page and a web page are kind of how I like to think of the distinctions. A web page is anything that you're going to see in your browser. And a page is one certain type of content. Remember, we just looked at all of those types of content. A page is one of them. And a page is generally going to be used for durable information. So here are two examples. This is one of my websites. This is the site that I run for my robotics team. And one of these is a page, and one is not a page. Although they look similar, they serve different functions. So on the left is my About Us / our team description of us page, which is fairly durable. I mean, we update it once in a while with what's new with our team, but it's not really going to be something that's like a timely thing. Whereas a blog entry definitely will be. For example, this one is about one of our competitions, so this isn't going to be relevant like a year from now. Also, I wanted to highlight really quick, this area here within the web page is the page. There's a difference, there's a distinction. And then this area here is the blog entry, not the entire thing. I'll explain why that works in a minute. So that was a page. Next we have a book. A book is a name for a set of content. So let's say that you have let's say like a geek wiki website, and you want to have a page about the characters in The Princess Bride. Oh, awesome, there you go, Princess Bride character page. And then as you're writing this, let's say you realize and remember, oh, The Princess Bride is too fantastic and all these characters are so in-depth that I need to have separate pages for each one of them. A book allows you to take all of these different pieces of content and put them together to classify them under one thing. So it's kind of like chapters in an actual paper book. Think of it as sort of the table of contents of Drupal. Also, within a book, you can classify things further. So, for example, if you wanted to have a main characters section with all of your main character chapters and a supporting character section because The Princess Bride is just too fantastic and you need to have in-depth information about everything, right? So that's a book. Next, we have the concept of a node. And again, this is another one that's a little trickier and a little more confusing because when I first came to the Drupal community, I thought of node as sort of Drupal's special little word that they used like a code word. You know, this is the Drupal thing, and you can tell people are talking about Drupal if they're using the word node. So a node is a name for a numbered piece of content. Any single piece of content on your site, no matter what content type it is, it could be one blog entry, one page, one poll, whatever, is referred to as a node. So one piece of content. That's a node. The poll is a node. That's a node, that's a node, that's a node. Those are all nodes. And the first piece of content you ever publish on your website, any guesses what it's called? Node 1 is the name of that piece of content. And it's actually kind of interesting if you're just checking out Drupal, looking around at some of the sites on the case files or whatever. Go to that website and just type /node/1 after the site address, just to see what pops up, because a lot of the times people never really delete their first piece of content, and so you'll see like the first thing that was ever put on this website, and I find it really interesting. So the first piece of content you ever publish is called Node 1, the second is Node 2, and so on after that. And obviously you can change these URLs later, but it's pretty much just sort of an identifier for this piece of content. So Drupal in its Drupal brain thinks, okay, this blog entry is node number 364, and just remembers that. So now we've kind of talked about the words in Drupal that pertain to content itself. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about how the site is built and put together and what terms are used to refer to those concepts. So the first one is a region. A region is an area on a web page. Notice web page, not a page. There's a difference. I'm going to remind you of that several more times. So a region is kind of part of the structure of your Drupal website. So for example, here's the page, or web page. I got this from the Drupal case files. Again, check that out. And so on this page, there are a bunch of different regions. There we go, okay. For example, there's this section of the page, which would be defined as a header region. And there's a couple of sidebars and the content region. And so these will all be assigned names. This is kind of my guess for what these are called because it's logical, and it'll be easy for you to figure out when you're going around the administration of your Drupal website, like what it's talking about when it says header. So a region is a place to put stuff. What kind of stuff do you put in regions? You put blocks. A block is a piece of text or code or functionality that does something, serves some purpose that you can put inside a region. So again, here's another example of a web page, and I'm going to highlight a couple of the blocks. There's one, this is a slideshow thing. There's another one, that's a playlist widget, and then here is links to their, I guess, recent posts or something on their site. Notice, both of these blocks on the right are in the same region, the right sidebar region, but they're separate blocks. So you can stick multiple blocks in regions depending on the size and the constraints of the region. Depending on the code that is used for your website, a region can hold like a certain amount of space or a certain amount of blocks, or it can just be able to be extended forever, like generally a content region is not limited by space. They're not going to cut off your words in your blog post because you ran out of region space. So to configure blocks, in Drupal 7, you can either go to click the little gear thing that's in the top right corner of all of your blocks and hit configure, or you can use your administration menu, and there you'll find a list of all the blocks on your website, the regions that they live in. So here, all of these ones are in the left sidebar. And by the way, you can enable, disable, and delete blocks at any time. So these are all in the left sidebar, and you can click on them to configure them, change what they're doing, whatever. You can also add new blocks very easily. You literally just click add block, and this is just a super basic one. You put a description of it and the name of it, and then any text or code that's going to go inside your block that does something. So this is just this is a social media links block that's just going to have some little Facebook and Twitter and YouTube icons that you can click on. Next, we're going to talk about a field. This is a super important distinction. A lot of the time, people will get the terms field and region confused because as a speaker of the English language, these sound like sort of similar concepts, right? They're totally not in Drupal. Drupal treats them as completely different things. So a field is an attribute of a piece of content. So if you have a piece of content, a blog entry, a page, a post, whatever, any of those types of content that we looked at before, or any other ones that you could possibly dream of, they're going to have a set of fields, which are attributes like the body, or the title, or the author, or the date it was published. Drupal comes with a set of default ones, such as the title and the body, whether there's comments enabled on this type of content, etc. For each type of content, you can enable different fields. This is important to remember because for a photograph, you might want to have different attributes than you would want for a blog entry. Maybe for the photograph, you want to have an extra field for the type of camera that it was taken with, or the exposure level, or whatever like that. So this is what the list of fields for a given content type looks like. So for this one, we just have the most basic title and body. You can add your own ones yourself, or there's custom code that does extra fancy things for you and pulls in other data like the date it was published, things like that, the job of whoever wrote it, etc. And we're going to talk about menus next. A menu is kind of intuitive. It's a navigation system for you and your users to get around the website. If you've looked at Drupal at all, you've probably already used a menu. So for example, the administration menu, where you click around to get to all of this stuff, like your blocks, and menus itself is actually in the administration menu. So for example, here's another website. I thought this one was cute. And along the top, we have a menu. And then again, along the sidebar, there's another menu. Both of these are enabled for users to look at. You're also going to have a separate menu, which is going to be your administration menu, which you'll see behind the scenes. Also, anyone that goes into your website to help you edit it or do extra stuff to your site that they have authentication to do, they'll see their own version of that menu that has everything they're allowed to do enabled in it. So to configure menus, you're going to go to the administration menu again, and this is the list of all of the menus that you have available on your website. The navigation is the most obvious one, but also there are primary and secondary links enabled by default in Drupal. Important thing to remember, primary links are usually the links at the top of the page. It took me probably an hour of my time to figure this out. It's like, how do you change the things that are on top of the page? Primary links, in general, 80–90% of the time. Those are going to be the ones that display at the top of the page that are things like About Us, Gallery, I don't know, whatever you want to have up there. You can also add a new menu. Again, adding a menu is as easy as adding a block or a field of things that we just showed you. So you can just go ahead and add a menu and just put your title and description. And then after you do that, you can add items to the menu. So if you have this lovely menu about unicorns, you could put unicorn horn page and unicorn tail page underneath so that you can get around all of the interesting information that you have about unicorns. This is different than a book though, because it's not necessarily links to content specifically. It can be links to other things. Next, we're going to talk about modules. Module is a big concept in Drupal, so much that you've probably already seen the word before, and you've probably already done some stuff with modules. Even if you haven't even installed Drupal yet, you've seen this term come up. A module is code that does stuff to your website, that changes how your website works. I wanted to make sure that that was super obvious. A module changes what your site does. Drupal comes with a set of core modules that come with the installation. Some of them can be enabled or disabled, some of them can't. And it also has thousands and thousands of contributed modules available on Drupal.org. Some names of modules that you might have heard, and some other terms that are used from different websites. If you're familiar with WordPress, plugins and widgets and all of this stuff, a module is kind of like those. It's code that does stuff to your website and changes the way it works. Absolutely, absolutely, definitely check out all of the contributed modules. Well, obviously not all of them, because you're not going to spend hours of your life scrolling through thousands of them. But check out at least the most popular ones on Drupal.org. Contributed modules are what makes Drupal fantastic, because the whole idea of open source software, this is what this is. People can contribute modules, and you can change modules and fix bugs, and that is Drupal. That's what makes Drupal awesome, is the easy customizability, that's not a word, of your Drupal websites. So to configure, enable, or disable your modules, you're going to go to the administration menu and just click on modules, and you'll have the list of all of them, and you can, again, enable, disable, or configure them depending on what module they are, what module it is they are. And there will be a separate list for the contributed modules and the core ones so that you can tell them apart, which ones you installed and which ones you didn't. Also, before you do anything else, I'm so glad that I get to talk to you guys, because this is an important thing for newbies that I wish I would have had earlier. Advanced Help is an awesome contributed module. What it does is makes everything else on your website easier for you to do. So Advanced Help is a module that pulls the README files and any information pertaining to a module that is downloaded with the rest of the code and puts it in a place that's easy for you to get to on your site. So, for example, if you are installing the CAPTCHA module on your website because you don't want Spambox to put a ton of comments on your guest book, and you're trying to figure out how to configure it or do stuff with it, and you can't find the exact menu or whatever. Just bring up advanced help, click on CAPTCHA, and right there will be all of the README files and anything that the developer included with the module to make it easier on you. This is huge. This is like a shortcut for you. It's an easy cheat sheet, and you don't actually have to go in and find the file yourself. Check out advanced help. It's really nice. Next, we're going to talk about a theme. Themes are similar to modules in that Drupal comes with core themes and contributed themes, but different in that a theme changes how your site looks. Remember we talked about regions before? A theme defines what regions are on your website. It also defines things like color scheme and other stuff. And again, the great thing about Drupal, it's all open source. You can go in and change the theme yourself. These are some names of popular themes. The Zen theme is huge. I think that's the most downloaded one in Drupal right now. Again, go look at the top contributed themes on Drupal.org. They're great. Most of them, or many of them, are sort of bare bones themes like the Zen theme that you can, or someone who knows CSS, JavaScript, etc., can go in and change and customize fairly quickly and easily. Drupal's different than WordPress and other content management sites in that there's not a whole bunch of sort of out-of-the-box, like pretty themes, because Drupal has this sort of expectation that you're going to want to customize stuff for your own use. But there are some, so if you're looking for sort of an out-of-the-box, nice, pretty theme, check them out. But Zen is where to start, I would say, if you're going to look at configuring your own. To configure themes, you just go to your administration menu and click on themes, and it'll show you the list of all of the ones that are installed for you. You can have 2 themes enabled at a time. One of them is going to be for your users, and that is the one that they'll see when they go to your website. And then the other one is for you, for the administrator. And this is a good thing to have. You can have the same theme enabled for both your administration and the users, but it gets kind of confusing. And so to me, I just keep the default Drupal theme enabled for administration. That way, as soon as I see that, I know that I'm in my part of the website, my administrating place. Also, depending on the theme, you can configure and enable or disable things like a logo for your site, whether there's a slogan, etc. This is sort of bare bones configuration for it, but a lot of themes also have color customization, so even if you're not someone who's really into actual coding, you can change your site to look like yours fairly easily. So the next 2 things that we're going to talk about are contributed modules. Remember we talked about modules and how there's core and contributed. These 2 things are not going to come with your website. So if you're searching around and looking for, where was that thing that she talked about, you're not going to find it. It's on Drupal.org unless you have installed Acquia Drupal, which does include these modules. The first one is views. And views is a big module. It's really big and really complicated and really awesome. And when I first came into the Drupal community, there were kind of the 2 big modules were views and CCK, Content Construction Kit, which was added to the core of Drupal 7. So views is a big deal. There are whole books written about it. There's an entire session about it today, I think, which is going on at the same time as this one. I was hoping to be able to send you guys to that one, but we're going to need a time-traveling device for that. Views lets you filter and organize data. So one example of a use for views is, say you have a bunch of pages or a bunch of blog posts and you want them to appear in your sidebar alphabetized by last name of author. Drupal doesn't do that by default. This is something that views can help you do. And this is just one example. Again, views is awesome, really cool, but it's also pretty complicated. So if you want to check out using it, which I definitely recommend you do, look at some books, some tutorials. I'll list a bunch of tutorial websites for Drupal at the end of this presentation, and talk to people. There will be tons of people wandering around today who know everything about views and can help you use it, or at least kind of learn more about what it does. And the next concept, oh yeah, views, this is super exciting. CCK is a part of Drupal 7, views is going to be a part of core in Drupal 8. So if you're planning on installing Drupal 8 for your website when it comes out, views will be in it. So I sort of lied about the part where it will be there, depending on what you do. The next concept is a panel. Panels is another contributed module. Panels lets you customize layouts for multiple uses. It's kind of a drag and drop content manager, but this is not the same as changing your theme. Keep this in mind, because I got those two things confused at first. So this is a screenshot of the panels interface. So say that instead of your blog entries being a single column, you wanted them to have multiple columns or a different layout. Panels can help you do that, and that's again just one of the examples. Panels is sort of like views in that it deserves its whole own session, and again, there's lots of tutorials and books if you want to learn more. The next three terms are going to be things that you've probably heard and that pertain to technology in general, but that Drupal has kind of adopted into its own use. The first one is taxonomy. Taxonomy is a classification process. So the way that I like to refer to it when I'm talking to people that are learning is tags. Taxonomy is stuff like tags for your site. So this is what the configuration interface for taxonomy looks like. Drupal refers to different parts of taxonomy as vocabularies. So you can add a vocabulary, which would be something like tags. So add the name of it and description. And then you can enable which content types it pertains to. So for example, if you wanted tags to be enabled for blog entries and, let's say, articles, but not for photos and pages, you can do that with taxonomy. You can also have different things that aren't technically tags. Again, learning more about taxonomy, there's lots and lots of awesome tutorials. Another thing that taxonomy can do for you that I wanted to mention really quick is add something like this. The way that this website found articles that were related to the one that I was reading was by taking the tags from that article and looking at other articles that were tagged with things similar to those and generating those and spitting them out there. Taxonomy doesn't do this by default, by the way. There's another contributed module that works with taxonomy to do this. A lot of modules depend on taxonomy to be able to work. So in order for module B to be able to do its thing, you've got to have module A enabled. And it'll tell you that. It won't just give you a random arrow. It'll be like, hey, you need to enable taxonomy for this to be able to work. The next term is roles. So we've been talking about things pertaining to content. How do you manage your content? Roles are the way that Drupal manages its users. So say on your website you've got, let's say you're running a newspaper website, because that's kind of what I'm familiar with. You have an administrator of your website, which for me was me and one of my friends, and then you have an editor level that's allowed to do a lot of the things that administrator is, but not all of them. And then maybe you have a writer and a photographer and an artist. You can assign roles to users, and so each role has its own set of permissions. Permissions are anything from bare bones accessing content down to like actually administering blocks and regions and stuff. Again, usually you'll have one admin user, or maybe two, that'll have everything enabled, that they can do everything on their website, and then other classes, other roles of people that can do different things. Anonymous users generally have the most bare privileges and permissions on the site. For example, accessing content, maybe posting a comment, stuff like that. Just general advice, this might seem kind of obvious, but don't go and give everybody on your site permission to do everything. If you're starting out and you're part of a team that's administering a website, make sure there's one person that can be responsible for being the admin, and you can give other people lots of permissions, but don't give them everything, because it's easier to give people permissions than it is to take them away. And if you give people stuff that they don't know what to do with, for example, if you have an editor that has the permission to administer blocks, they're going to go in and look at that and freak out, oh, what is this? And maybe change some stuff that you don't want to be changed. So make sure that you take a good look at your permissions what's enabled, what's not, and I suggest you do that before you do much else with your website, is go in and look at the default roles, which are anonymous user, which is just any person that's visiting your site, and authenticated user, which is a person that's logged in. Go look at those and make sure that, that they have the permissions they need and no more. Also, every time you install a new module on your website, make sure you go check your permissions, because a lot of the time modules will add extra permissions that you need to enable for yourself, for the admin user, before you can actually do stuff with them. So, for example, if you don't have the permission to configure the CC, or not CCK, maybe the CAPTCHA module, then you're not going to be able to do it, and you're going to look around for that link and not see it. It's kind of interesting that you can sort of deprive yourself of the stuff that you're looking for. Cache. All of you guys know what this is already. It's Drupal storage system. If you have a large Drupal website, which the majority of Drupal sites are, they're not generally aimed at like personal blog sites. This is going to be a site that has a lot of content on it and a lot of stuff. And if every time any user has to load a page from your website, it has to go find everything, it's going to take a long time and your site is going to be slow. So the cache, as you guys already know, keeps track of those pages so that your website goes faster. Remember though that this does exist, because a lot of the time when you're, especially when you're starting with the Drupal website, the cache will mess things up for you. And a lot of the time I've looked and installed a new module or something and then gotten a whole bunch of crazy errors. Have you guys gotten Drupal errors yet? The crazy red text that goes, "Ah, bad things are happening," and a lot of the time the error isn't super specific. So go and clear your cache, and then you can panic. That's my general rule, because a lot of the time something that's left over in the cache will be conflicting with something that you just installed, and it'll screw things up. To clear your cache, you can either do it manually, or you can use this awesome process called Drush, which also does a lot of other things. Look at tutorials again, talk to me, talk to other people if you want to learn more about it. Drush is really cool, but for this purpose, you can set it up to just clear your cache at time intervals or based on the number or the amount of traffic you're getting to your website, stuff like that, so that you don't have to think about it. Because if you are a forgetful person like me and most of the rest of the universe, you're not going to remember to go in and clear your cache every time you're editing your Drupal website, and stuff will get confused. So, those are all the concepts we have to cover today. To learn more about any of the things that we talked about, or anything else you learned today, definitely go to other sessions. Drupal Gardens is an awesome tutorial website. I also like Lullabot, and Drupalize and Go to Drupal are some other good tutorial sites. And the best thing that you can do, this is a question that I get a lot, is, hey, I'm new to Drupal, what's the best way that I can just sort of know everything instantly? And the answer is there's not really a way to do that. If you sit down and you do like a 40-hour Drupal training course, awesome, good for you, but you're probably not going to remember everything. The best way that you can get into Drupal is to completely just immerse yourself in it. As soon as you get home, tonight, go look at those modules. No, I'm kidding, not tonight. But as soon as you can, start talking to people, start looking at the forums, start looking at tutorial websites, and going to, there's awesome Drupal coffee clubs and stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on through the Atlanta Drupal users group, and they have a meetup page and everything like that. So get involved with them, because the more people you talk to, the more stuff you do, the more Drupal related things you get your fingers into, the better stuff is going to go for you. Because I'm in high school, it's kind of like the difference between showing up at a biology exam having studied everything 10 minutes before, or showing up having studied everything like weeks. And that helps a lot. So really quick, because we have some time left, I want to do some review, because I know that we blew through a lot of things today, and I want to make sure enough of it is retained that you guys are going to be able to go to sessions today and understand what's going on. So this is just going to be easy fill in the blank stuff. Does anyone know the answer to this? What is stuff that is presented to site users? Content, yeah, awesome. You can just shout it out. Pieces of content that have specific numbers assigned to them? No. Yeah. What about a page? Is it a type of content? Yeah, pages are content types. What are some examples of content types? Default ones, other ones you can think of? Yeah. What about an area on a web page that has a name assigned to it? What go in regions? Yes! What about navigation? Menus? Thank you. What changes what your site does, the functionalities? And how your site looks? Themes. Great. Organizing and filtering data. Views, yes. Awesome. Again, I really regret that you guys are missing the views session today because Steve Burgess is an awesome guy. But if you want to learn about it, find him and talk to him. Don't tell him I said it. No, I'm kidding. True or false? Is a panel a module? Yes. This is actually a trick question. Panels is a module, but a single panel itself is not. There's a distinction. Tags. Roles. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. And these are all of the websites that I used today. Again, check out the Drupal case files. There have been some awesome ones. And again, look at this list. This is an awesome list. A lot of really cool big ticket people use Drupal, which you may have already known, but I just think it's really cool. Every time I hear that there's some new big organization or company that's using Drupal, I do yes, kind of excited about it because Drupal, it's awesome, guys, honestly. You picked the right CMS. These are the topics that we covered today. There's 15 of them. My name, again, is Monica Garbers. You guys can email me if you have any questions about anything in my session or any of the other sessions that you attend today. Genius Robotics is my robotics team's website. That's the main Drupal site that I maintain these days. And this Vimeo link is a link to the presentation that I did 2 years ago about modules, must-have modules for your new Drupal website. And it might be a little bit out of date because of the new releases of Drupal, but a lot of the stuff that's in it still pertains today. So if you want to learn more, there's some ideas. Any questions? Yeah?
How do I edit the HTML or CSS on the website?
Okay, so the question was, how do you edit the HTML or the CSS in a theme or a module? You have to actually go into the files that you download from the module. The core files, I don't believe you can edit, but any of the contributed module files you can change. Any other questions? Yeah.
This might be a dumb and very non-developer type question, but so I work with Drupal in a more sales and agency capacity, and I don't think I've ever bumped into books before. Is that maybe we just don't use books, or?
Yeah, so the question was books. That's kind of a thing that's not really mentioned a whole lot. And that is true. It's kind of more of an underground concept. Like you won't see it all over the place, but it is something that is still in the core of Drupal, so you might see it on your website and run into it. And I think it's kind of underrated, honestly. A lot of people use views for the same purpose that books solves, but you can use them for different things too.
It seemed like it was organizational in nature and hierarchical in the way you presented it, and it felt more like navigation. Is it related or supports or?
It's sort of like navigation, except that it more pertains to a set of content. So if you have a certain, like a bunch of blog entries that are tied together in a certain way, that would be more of a book than maybe a menu that would lead to different stuff like how to get to your menus and your modules and your themes of your site. And
in that example, it would be almost like a sort of an auto-filtered list of based on tags in the blog.
Yeah. More like a filtered list. Again, views can help you with a lot of that stuff too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
On that same question, can a piece of content belong to multiple books, or is it tied to only one book?
Can a piece of content be tied to multiple books? Absolutely. Yep. And also, I forgot to mention, you can also tie different types of content in with a book. So you can have a blog entry and a page and an article in the same book, as long as as long as you put them in there and they're related to each other. Yeah.
Do you use books in your robotic website?
I do not. I don't have any reason to use it, but I've used it before with my magazine website and the website that I run for my National Junior Classics Latin Club League. If I can get that out, yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, so the nodes are another piece of content, content types?
Yes, a node is not a content type. A node is a term that refers to a piece of content. So a node is kind of, again, it's sort of like an umbrella term like content itself that refers to all of content in general, except that it only means one.
Each page on your, or each page on your site
Is a single node. Yep.
each web page.
Because I was thinking if you had like an article and a poll on the same web page, then
Each of those are going to be a separate node. Yeah, if you have 2 pieces of content on the same page, or if you have a blog that has 4 different posts, each of those posts is its own node.
but the URL does the URL reflect that?
No, so if you have,
That's what my question.
okay, all right. So if you have like the front page of your site that has a whole bunch of content stuff on it, that's not going to be a link to a specific node. However, if you click on one of those pieces of content, like if you're looking at post number 46 about unicorn horns, then that is going to be assigned a number and be a specific node.
Yeah, that's
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Cool. All right, again, you can find me today if you have any more questions, anything else you want to ask. Thank you guys very much for attending the session.